Hello, my name is Fife, and I've been a paranormal investigator for about 11 years now. And over the course of my investigations, I have investigated some really cool locations and some really creepy locations. But there's one experience that has stuck with me over the years. So one of my favorite locations to investigate is this place called St. Albans Sanatorium, and it's located in the town of Bradford, Virginia. And it's a really cool location. If you ever get a chance, just browse the internet, look at some videos, some photos of it. It's a really cool place, and it had been close to the top of my bucket list for as long as I can remember. So finally I was invited down to speak at this event on April 2nd, 2016. And it was, I was like a kid in the candy store. I was really excited to be there because I had spent years studying this place, but I hadn't been allowed to investigate it where, you had to be 18 to investigate it, stuff like that. But the only time they really made an exception to that rule was when they had an event going on. So I was taking about 1,000 photos, just soaking it all up, and I guess I wasn't paying attention to the energy. And that investigation, it was very active, but nothing crazy happened. It was great. We investigated from about, 8 o'clock until maybe 1:30 in the morning. And I saw some shadow figures, heard some stuff, nothing crazy. So go home, I'm in school, stuff like that. We've got a lot going on. It's close to the end of the year. But something strange started happening. I started hearing it was almost like a voice in my head that kept saying, hey, you need to go back. You need to go back to Albans. You have to go back. And I couldn't stop thinking about the building. It became an actual obsession. And I've never had that happen with any other location before or since. So I talked with my dad, and I was like, we have to go back. I know we were there literally a few weeks ago, but we have to go back. Something's going to happen. So finally, they had an event. It was May 13th, 2016. It was actually the Friday the 13th event. Of course, they were hyping it up. Ooh, Friday the 13th, it's really creepy, scary, that kind of stuff. And I was invited to be a part of the investigation. And so we went, and I remember on the way down, it didn't feel right. Something felt off the entire way there. It's about 2.5 hour drive. And it was a good trip, nothing bad happened. It was a very nice sunny day, very warm too. And so I remember there's this bridge that we go across to get to the building. And I just remember seeing the building, you make this turn, you go right, and then there it is. And I just remember something didn't look right. I wasn't as excited as I was the first time. The first time I was like, wow, I'm actually here, this is really cool. But this time it was like, there was something different. And something felt, it didn't feel natural. And so we got up to the building. Of course, we talked to everyone, everyone was really cool. And the event was packed. There were a lot of people there. Not quite twice what it was the month before, but there was a lot of people there. And everyone was very nice, cutting up, having conversations, talking about the paranormal and all sorts of other stuff. But there was just this atmosphere, this tone that, something didn't feel right. And you couldn't shake that feeling from your mind. So we get broken up into our groups, and we were in group 1, which is the same group that we had been in the event before. So we start our investigation in the boiler room, which is in the basement area next to the bowling alley, which is insanely active. One of the main spirits that haunts there, there's a red-eyed demon that they say was conjured by a satanic group, so loads of fun there. And then there's allegedly this goat man entity that haunts the boiler room. And of course, I'm skeptical until proven otherwise. You hear these stories of, shape-shifting demons and goat men and all that stuff. And, I approach this with, show me. I want to see evidence. I either want to collect the evidence myself, or I want to see evidence to back up these claims. So it's my dad and I, and there's 2 others in the room, the boiler room. And we're doing a spirit box session. We're getting some good stuff. And I noticed that there's movement out of the corner of my eye, just something going back and forth. And it looked short, maybe 4.5 feet tall, something like that. And I couldn't really make out a form. I just saw, shadows moving real quick. And, first few times, like, oh, that's kind of cool, something's going on. But then it started annoying me. And I started getting uncharacteristically angry. And, if you've ever investigated with me or seen my videos, I'm usually very calm, kind of lighthearted, laid back. But I was just getting angry that this was happening and that it wasn't identifying itself. So finally, I just turned around to where it was, and I said, look, whatever you are, whoever you are, make your presence known. Say something now, or I'm coming back there. Which, like I said, is very uncharacteristic of me. So nothing happens for a few minutes, and we're doing spirit box session. We're kind of in the middle of the room in between these machines. Not really any voices over spirit box. It's kind of getting boring, and then I saw the movement again. And that, for some reason, just set me off. And so I remember I grabbed my Olympus voice recorder, which was actually my original voice recorder I've had all these years. And I just went back there. I charged back there. And, my dad and the other people were like, whoa, what'd you see? What'd you think? That kind of stuff. I didn't talk. I just went back there. And I remember as I got closer, I yelled, "Show yourself. Where are you?" And there was just a smell of wet fur, almost like you're sitting next to a wet dog. That's what it smelled like. You could feel it kind of shoot out of this, back corner near these old machines. And see, old machines have a very distinct smell. So it's not uncommon to be in this area and to have weird odors hit your nose. But this was different. It literally smelled like wet dog fur. So at this moment, I kind of slow down because, I seemingly get control and I can sense something's off. And I stop, I hold the voice recorder out in front of me about, as far as my arms could reach. And I said, "I know you're back here, identify yourself." And there was just this really loud hiss. And then you could feel almost like heat, really hot heat, just shoot out real quick from this corner. And, I jumped back. And, everyone else in the room could hear it. Even over the spirit box, which was right in front of them, all of that stuff. They could hear the hiss. Thankfully, I had the recorder sticking out from me. It picked it up clear as day. And, at that moment, I looked at my dad and I was like, "I think I just pissed off the goat man." So that was great. We did the rest of the session, which was, they did 40-minute blocks. I think it's 40-minute blocks. And then you'd have a few minutes in the break room, taking breaks. You get coffee, use bathroom, and then you go somewhere else. So I'm talking to some of the people about, "Hey, I think I just encountered Goat Man." They're like, "Wow." And then someone came up to me. It was actually the guide of another group, and they said, "Hey, you might want to watch out because someone saw something with red eyes up near the attic." And about an hour and a half later, we actually, after that, went to the Dragon's room, and nothing really happened. Thought I saw some shadows. And then after that break, someone told me, "Hey, someone got punched up near the birdcage," which the birdcage historically is where they kept the most dangerous patients and criminals that were housed at St. Albans. And I just remember everyone was kind of on edge, uneasy. People were still friendly, talking all that stuff, but everyone had kind of broken up into their own little pockets. And I remember looking at my dad. We were standing outside in this little break room area, and I told him, I said, "Something's different." I said, "Whatever we're dealing with in this building is not good whatsoever," and he concurred. So it was finally our time to go to Demon Hallway. Which Demon Hallway, the name sounds really imposing, but I really wasn't scared simply because when I had been there before, nothing happened. Maybe saw a shadow, heard a voice, but most of my time was spent either going through the hallway to get up to the attic where someone had seen, the red-eyed thing, or you go down the hallway and take a left, and there's another hallway to Jacob's room, which we had a lot of activity when we were there in April. So we're going down the hallway. I was at the very front of the group. I was talking with the guys, kind of walking, talking, that kind of stuff. And nothing was going on. We were all kind of in this little center position where you can either go one way. There's about 3 different ways you can go. And I looked at my dad and I said, "Hey, you want to go to Jacob's room?" And he said, "Sure." So he told the guy, "Hey, we're going down here to Jacob's room. We shouldn't be there long." And they were like, "Okay, we'll see you in a bit." Keep track of the time. We had like 35 minutes. So it's my dad and I, and there's 2 other people. It's actually the same 2 people that was in the boiler room with us. And we're in Jacob's room, and we fire up the spirit box session, PSP-7 spirit box. And we're kind of in this circle, and Jacob's room is not a large room. It's a very small room, but there's room enough to move around. And we were really getting nothing for the first few minutes. And then all of a sudden, we started getting really good voices. And we weren't getting anything, like when we would ask, "What's your name?" wouldn't tell us. We would just get, answers like yes or no or stuff like that. Or we would hear some weird noise. We thought we heard a whistle a few times. And then it went kind of dead again, pun intended. And my dad suggested, "Hey, why don't we turn off the spirit box and switch to EVP?" And I was against this initially because St. Albans is very echoey. It's one of the most, it's like an echo chamber. Every room is. And I told him, I said, if we did that, we'd probably pick up the voices of the other people in our group. They're just a hallway and a half away. We could easily hear them. So, he talked me into turning off the box and seeing, if we could hear them. And so we waited for about 30 seconds, complete silence, nothing. And so we were thinking, oh, that's kind of weird, but, they probably went up to the attic. That's what we were thinking. So we're doing the EVP session, we're asking questions, we're knocking on the floor, trying to get the spirits to communicate with us, and nothing's going on. And then finally we started hearing movement in the room across from us, which is called Donald's room. And it's a pretty creepy room. And I remember one of the guys said he saw a really tall shadow dart across this other doorway. And at that point, there was just this feeling of dread that came over all of us. And you could almost feel it enter the room as if, it walked in the room. That's what it felt like. So we're sitting there, we're like, who just walked in the room? Who's here with us? And nothing. And then all of a sudden, in the room across from us, Donald's room, it sounded like all hell broke loose. You could hear someone stomping, you could hear multiple people. It sounded like they were running around. You could hear glass shattering, someone hitting on the walls. And we're all just sitting there, looking at each other like, is this really happening? This is insane. And that went on for about 15 to 20 seconds of just this really loud noise, or, groups of noises. And, skipping ahead to the next day when I'm reviewing the evidence, none of that stuff is on the voice recorder, aside from we recorded the stomping sounds, but that was it. And you can hear us react to it, but you can't hear the glass shatter, you can't hear something banging on the walls, nothing. And I still have no explanation for that to this day, but sometimes demonic entities and inhuman entities, they can't erase themselves from voice recorders, footage, and stuff like that. And it always sucks, because that would have been great evidence. So at this point, we're thinking that, we're dealing with something inhuman, but it's kind of keeping its distance. So we're asking questions, we seal the spirit box off, and then we start hearing footsteps getting closer. And you can kind of get this feeling that whatever was seemingly far away was getting a bit more comfortable, getting a bit more gutsy, and was coming closer and closer. And then finally, we started hearing something right outside the door, but we couldn't see it. And it just sounded like something pacing back and forth. So one of the guys in our group pulls out, his iPhone with flash and, holds the button down. It takes a series of photos. So he took a series of maybe 5 or 6 photos. And in the first few photos, nothing. But in one photo, half the door, and mind you, this is taken with flash. And there's one doorway in front of us that's half blocked by something on the outside of the room. Because you can see the door frame. It's not inside, it's outside the room. And it was just this solid black mass. And then in the photo he took after it, the door was completely blacked out. So something huge and obviously inhuman was standing in front of the door. And then in the next photo, it's on the other side and then it's gone. So it's literally like he took a photograph of it walking left to right. So that was pretty unnerving. He was showing us, we were like, what the heck, I'd never seen anything like that before. And especially since we heard the footsteps as he was taking the photos, but we couldn't see anything. So we're deciding at this time, it's best to link up with everyone else. So we're literally about to, go back into the hallway and probably head up to the attic, which is what we were planning on doing, when our guide rushes in. And I've never seen him that pale before. And he looked like, he had seen a ghost, basically. And he was like, where have you guys been? We've been looking for you. And we all looked at each other kind of puzzled. We're like, we've been in Jacob's room the whole time. Remember we told you? And he was like, well, we've been out here, down the stairs. And we couldn't see you, we couldn't hear you, we couldn't find you. We looked everywhere. And so we walked out of this room. You walk out of Jacob's room, you take a right, maybe 3 or 4 steps, and there's a staircase. And it's this area they call it the main stairs because it's a really nice stairway. And then there's a foyer at the bottom. And it actually leads towards the front doors of the building. Actually, technically the back part. And there was maybe 8 or 9 people that were sitting down there. They weren't being loud or anything, but they were talking conversational tone. And for some reason, we couldn't hear them, they couldn't hear us. And what's interesting, they went by the stairs, to get down. So we would have heard them walk by, and they would have heard us either running the spirit box or running EVP. But they didn't, and we didn't hear them. So the last thing I remember is I was talking with the guy and my dad about what had just happened. We were trying to figure out how what just happened, because it didn't make sense logically. And then the next thing I know, we're in this area that I had never been to before in Demon Hallway called Evan Radford's room. And the way you get there, I know now, you continue walking straight from Jacob's room, you bypass the stairs, you go down one hallway, Demon Hallway, and then you go down a half hallway, and it's a door on the left. I didn't know that room existed. So how we found that room, how we got there, I still to this day don't know. But we were in this room, and my dad was towards the back of it. I was close to the front of the room, near the door, and I was looking at, they had newspaper clippings up on the wall, different historical stuff. And I was looking at one, I believe it was John F. Kennedy. And I just remember looking over to the side and seeing movement. And there was just a shapeless, it was almost like a blob-shaped form, came into the door, looked at me, we made eye contact, and then it bolted. And it was like a weird gliding motion, up and then quick. Obviously inhuman. And I don't know why I did this, because it's very unlike me, but I lost complete control and I chased after it. This is something you never do, really anything, whether you're hunting or, on investigation, you never chase after this stuff because it always ends badly. But for some reason, I ignored all my prior knowledge, training experiences, and I chased it. So my dad, he's yelling, what's going on, what? And I'm just taking off after. I'm not saying anything. I've got the voice recorder in my hand. I've got the spirit box in my pocket because we weren't using it. And I remember it went out into the hallway and it stopped in this area that you can either go up into the attic or you can go down the hallway further. And it stopped and did like this basketball pivot. And I just remember it looked me dead in the eye, and I stopped dead in my tracks. I mean, I was full on sprinting after this thing. And I was maybe about 3 feet away from it. That's the closest to this day I've ever been to an inhuman entity. Now, I'm not calling it demonic simply because I don't know whether it was a demon or whether it was just, something inhuman. So I just remember looking up at this thing, and it's looking down at me. And even though it's, almost like looking into a black hole, just solid black, I could still make out 2 perfectly circular eyes. They were huge. And then there was this crooked mouth. It just had this weird looking smile on it. It looked like something you would see in your nightmares. And then my dad, he ran into the hallway, and he stopped a few feet behind me. I just remember him saying, "Jake, back away," very slowly. And so I started backing away, and the thing didn't move at first. And then we got into the room I had run through, and then it started coming towards us. And it stopped at the doorway. We stopped about midway in that room. So I pull out the spirit box, and I'm trying to communicate with it. And still to this day, those are the most clear spirit box responses I have ever gotten in my life. I mean, it was speaking as clear as day as I am to you now. And, it wouldn't identify itself, wouldn't answer who or what it was, but it was, it was saying stuff like, run, die, that kind of stuff. And it started after maybe about 4 or 5 minutes. It felt like an hour, but it was probably about 4 or 5 minutes. It started coming towards us. We were staying still. We were holding our ground, but it was coming towards us. And so, we backed up into the hallway in front of Edmund Radford's room, and my dad said, we need to get out of here. Something bad's going to happen, because you could feel the energy kind of collecting in this area. And we were worried that there was going to be an outburst and that, someone was going to get hurt. And so we started down the hallway. We didn't run, but we quickly made it down the hallway. And I just remember looking out the corner of my eye and just seeing this thing in the hallway, just watching us. And I remember it was moving towards us, but then it stopped. And you could hear like this faint, it was almost like a laugh or something come from the area, just very disturbing sounding. Every time I think about this experience, I get the same cannonball in the gut feeling. It's like a replay of the event in my head as I talk about it. It's one of the reasons, even though it's one of the, cooler experiences, in terms of what people like to hear, I don't like talking about it. And I remember we got back to the rest of our group, and we were like, very sorry, it took us so long. We know that we had to be on break, and on our voice recorder, it showed that the experience took about 12 minutes. We were gone. But our guides told us we were only gone for about 2 minutes. So, for some reason, there's about 9 to 10 minutes of lost time. And there are some cases, it's famous with alien abductees, they have lost time, sometimes days and hours. There are a few cases in demonic hauntings and possessions where people experience lost time, but it's very rare. And it's the only time in my life that I have ever encountered anything like this. And still this day, it's the one experience that has never truly left me. And sometimes I feel like that entity is still around, even though, I'm confident it's not. It's just that experience, has left an imprint on me. And it's, I hope I never experience that ever again.